So we finally got the full rundown of games that will be included with the PlayStation Classic that is only about a month away from its actual release at this point. And I've got to say, the more I look at this list, the more I really don't like it. I didn't like it at first glance and thought, maybe I'll feel better about it after a while. But no, my feelings have only gotten worse, and I feel like I understand now why they waited so long to talk about anything besides the first couple of games. So let's start with the full list. For those of you who may not have seen it yet, we've got Battle Arena Toshinden, Cool Borders 2, Destruction Derby, Final Fantasy VII, Grand Theft Auto, Intelligent Cube, Jumping Flash, Metal Gear Solid, Mr. Driller, Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, Rayman, Resident Evil Director's Cut, Revelations Persona, Ridge Racer Type 4, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Siphon Filter, Tekken 3, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, Twisted Metal, and Wild Arms. Now, there are some great games in here, to be sure. Metal Gear Solid, I was kind of surprised they didn't include that one with the initial list of games to really get people more excited. Really glad to see Cool Borders 2 got in there, as well as Twisted Metal, even though I would have preferred Twisted Metal 2. Same with Resident Evil. I think 2 would have made more sense, given both that the remake's coming out, and I think Resident Evil 2 is really the premier game from that series from that PS1 era. But these franchises are at least represented, which I guess makes them kind of lucky because, man, are there some glaring omissions in the PlayStation Classic. The big one for me, obviously, is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I truly believe that this is objectively the best PlayStation 1 game. My favorite PlayStation 1 game is probably Resident Evil 2, but I honestly think if I look objectively at the entire PlayStation 1 catalog, I'd have to put Symphony of the Night right at the top. Not only is it a great game for that era, but how many games from that time have aged this well? I mean, you can still pop that sucker into your original PS1, and it's a fantastic experience. Konami was already on board with Metal Gear Solid, and they've done plenty of Castlevania games on the Nintendo classics, so including this game I kind of thought was going to be a no-brainer. Now sure, they did just release this and Rondo of Blood as a 2-pack on PS4. I had plenty of people mention that to me, but I don't care. And here's where my logic is coming from with all these classic systems now and going forward. These are what my feelings are, and I feel like it's most of the masses as well. These are supposed to be complete experiences, the cream of the crop, must-play titles from these libraries. Like, if you're going to use that logic, oh, well, Castlevania Symphony of the Night's on PS4 now. Well, then why does Final Fantasy VII need to be on the PlayStation Classic? That game is available on just about every platform ever made. It's actually on its way to the Switch, in fact. So I guess they could have skipped that too, right? No one would be upset about a system called the PlayStation Classic not including Final Fantasy VII, right? No! That game was a pivotal part of this era, so I don't care if there's 10 million other ways to play it. If you're going to have a PlayStation Classic, touting it as the ultimate collection of PS1 games, Final Fantasy VII needs to be on there, and I feel the exact same way about Symphony of the Night and a few other games as well. When this system was first announced, in fact, I brought up this question in regards to the Spyro and Crash games. Both of them will have these shiny brand new remake collections available by the time the PlayStation Classic releases. So should they be there? Once more, yes, because that does not make them any less important to this system's library. Now, like I said in that video, with only 20 games, it's not like you're going to be able to load it up with all the Spyro and all the Crash games. In fact, with them being kind of similar, I would have probably only picked one from either, and I probably would have gone with Crash as he was more positioned as PlayStation's mascot during this time, their answer to Sonic and Mario. But to have no games from either of these series, it just doesn't make sense to me. Tomb Raider is another franchise that has had games on just about every system under the sun, but Lara Croft's history is tied very closely to the PlayStation. It's another one, if you had me making a list of games that need to be on the PlayStation Classic, it would have to be at the very tippy top, and unlike many of these other omissions, I don't even see any reasoning as to why we couldn't see one of these games. I mean, is there some new Tomb Raider Classic Collection or something coming out that I just don't know about? Especially given the success of the recent reboot series, I'm sure there's many people who would want to go back and relive at least one of the originals. And of course, I could go on. There are a ton of RPGs I would have liked to see. Suikoden 2, Legend of Dragoon, Chrono Cross, Final Fantasy Tactics. That was definitely a blow, not having Final Fantasy Tactics in there. Medieval, Legacy of Kain. You can go on and on for sure. So many great games from that era. But we did only have 20 slots to work with, which is a big part of the problem. It would be hard, I think, for anyone to narrow it down to 20 games for a PlayStation Classic. But again, looking back at what did make it, were these games all necessary? Could some of these not have been swapped out? Some genres, I think, were overrepresented, like driving games for one, Destruction Derby, Grand Theft Auto, Ridge Racer, and Twisted Metal. With only 20 slots, did we really need 4 to go to driving games? When Tekken 3 was confirmed at the start, I figured that was actually going to be the fighting game. I didn't even think we needed more than one. I would have dropped Battle Arena, honestly. Rainbow Six, we've got a lot of other shooters on the system. Granted, yes, Rainbow Six is a first-person shooter, but man, with like I was just saying, Resident Evil, I don't think holds up as well. Wait till some of you boys play Rainbow Six, and don't forget on the original PlayStation controller. No DualShock means no joystick. Have fun with that, playing a first-person shooter without sticks. Right there, I think Tomb Raider, even though it's another third-person shooter, I think would have made way more sense in that slot over something like Rainbow Six. So while I understand they couldn't put every game we want on there, I think they could have made some better decisions. Would some of these games maybe taken some more work, effort, negotiations, more money even to get on this system? Sure, but we're also paying $100 for it, for 20 digital PlayStation 1 games, so they're not exactly giving them away either. If the price point was cheaper, I could maybe be more lenient, perhaps understand some corner cutting, but still, the point of these things is supposed to be giving people that ultimate experience from these consoles, and I think Sony just fell way short here. Comparing it to Nintendo's classic systems, were there games on those that many felt were missing? 100%. No Chrono Trigger on the SNES Classic, very disappointing, but at the same time, they still packed those things with phenomenal titles. I don't think any game on either system felt like filler, like there was a much better choice for a game that could have taken its place, where there are multiple games I feel that way with when it comes to the PlayStation Classic. Again, yes, there isn't room for everything, but there was room for Destruction Derby and not Symphony of the Night. There was room for Rainbow Six, but not Final Fantasy Tactics. Come on. The lineup they do have isn't necessarily horrible, but being just okay or kinda good isn't enough for these types of systems. And I know there's also going to be the excuse of, oh, you're probably just going to be able to load the things up with ROMs of all the games you want anyway, so who cares? The worst excuse of them all, because you can do that now on your PC or your Raspberry Pi, whatever. And if that is your line of thinking, then I guess you would be fine if they just sold you these things with a blank hard drive. No games. Because you could just load all the ones you want, right? Yeah, stupid. Overall, these classic systems are marketed as being ultimate collections of games that defined these consoles, and I think the PlayStation Classic falls way short. And $100 isn't very cheap, people. The trend of these systems seems to be growing in price and shrinking in terms of number of games. And if that's the trend they want, I guess that's fine. But every game better be amazing, beloved by masses, and a must-play. There's no room for anything else, in my opinion. Maybe you can say I'm asking too much, but I don't think so. Because if that's not what they're shooting for, then what the hell's even the point of these classic consoles? Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on the PlayStation Classic in the comments, and which games, if any, do you feel are missing? Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of the upcoming PlayStation Classic library. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you want to keep the conversation going, follow me on Twitter @JohnnyZakari. Join my Discord, Shy Guy and Friends. Link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.